Hello, everyone. My name is Joanne Lockwood, and I am your host for the Inclusion Bites podcast. In this series, I will be interviewing a number of amazing people and simply having a conversation about the subject of inclusion, belonging, and generally making the world a better place for everyone to thrive in. If you would like to join me in the future, then please do drop me a line to joe.lockwood@seechangehappen.co.uk. That's SEE changehappen.co.uk. You'll be able to catch up with all of the shows on iTunes, Spotify, and of course, all the usual places. So plug in your headphones, grab a decaf, and let's get going. Today is episode 10 with the title, Understanding the Conflict Between Culture versus Humanity. And I have the absolute honor and privilege to be joined by Hend Halim. I met Hend at several CIPD events and True events in London over the past year or so. And Hend describes herself as an HR professional who is passionate about giving underrepresented people a voice. So I asked Hend to describe her superpower, and she said, being cheerful and diligent. So hello, Hend. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. It's a pleasure to be with you and all the guests attending.
Thank you. So tell me, why is it important to understand this conflict between culture and humanity?
It starts with liberating yourself out of everything you grew up learning by interacting with people and finding the truth yourself. Because I personally grew up in Egypt. I lived in Holland and I lived in the UK. I have 3 life experiences, so I'm going to share more details during this podcast about it. For me, as a cis, straight Muslim, it's a fight against discrimination and promoting equal opportunities to create a space for everyone to be treated with respect and to not feel different, because people usually have stereotypes, they have certain ideas. If they don't deal with the person directly, they will keep having them until maybe they die. So I used to come to London as a kid with my parents every summer holiday since I was 10. I would see people who look completely different from what I used to see back in Egypt, because we don't have much diversity in Egypt. We don't have other nationalities until the Arab Spring started, and then we started to have some Syrians or Iraqis and so on. So the first ever challenge between culture and humanity was at the age of 17. I studied a Canadian degree, and we had a professor who taught us human rights. It was a core module, and we had a project about LGBT and Islam. At first, we were all shocked, and because it's something hush-hush, nobody speaks about. It's frowned upon, it's not accepted, and so on. But she insisted that this is the topic we are going to do our graduation project about. So it was a big eye-opener to all of us, growing up knowing that those people are wrong or not doing something right or going against nature. Again, Egypt is 80% Muslims and 20% Christians, and both of them, again, under the Middle Eastern culture. So everyone is homophobic by nature. So we did a lot of research. We were completely surprised that there is a huge community of Muslims in Canada who are LGBTQ. They are welcome. They have their own mosques. You cannot lose your faith and stop being Muslim if you're an LGBTQ person. So that was something against everything we grew up learning, that if you do that, you'll lose your faith, you will not be accepted, and so on. So that was the first ever eye-opening experience. And now attending webinars or events where people speak about they are in the learning phase, getting to know the problems of the Black people, ethnic minorities, Muslims, or whatsoever. So I can relate to that because I used to have an opposing point of view against a group I never dealt with or know anything about, but it just built in through culture that they are not good for no reason. So a few years later, I moved to London to do my master's degree. That was the first ever direct contact with gay people. I had some at my class. One was open about his sexuality. The other one was keeping it a secret. I only knew that with my classmates during the Pride when she was part of it. So that took me some time to think that they are not different. They are really good people, very nice to us. They have good manners. They are successful, smart. They wouldn't go to postgraduate school if they are. So that showed me the reality that sometimes someone who is LGBTQ according to culture and religion, who's not good enough or on the right path, can be better than someone who's born and raised Muslim, but who would be a thief or a murderer or whatsoever. So what you do in the bedroom has nothing to do with how good you are. And from then, I started loving them, accepting them, giving them all the respect they deserve, because I saw and I've dealt with someone for a whole year and I loved her so much and I had no idea about her sexuality. So it taught me a very good lesson that what you built in or get planted in the culture is not always right. It's because you never dealt with them. So you have those wrong stereotypes. Mm. Even though in the Egyptian media, it's really visible and they feature themes about trans people and gender cross-dressing and everything. So it was accepted in the media, but not in reality. The latest survey was launched in Egypt in 2017. The result showed that 95% of people agreed that homosexuality should not be accepted. So that's a very large number. And
yeah, I mean,
reality.
From my perspective, so I'm obviously a person born who lived in England all of my life, almost all my life. So I would see the Middle East as a very unfriendly place for LGBT people. We hear of imprisonment, beatings, lashes, and even death for people who've been found guilty of being gay or lesbian or trans.
Yeah.
So I find that personally really tricky to kind of understand because, and I also see that with maybe some cultures within the UK. So we look at some fundamental Christians, there's some Muslim communities, there are people who are still anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-LGBT. who live in this country. And I think recently there was an incident where there were some schools in Birmingham that were trying to ban the education of their children around LGBT people. But the culture, I suppose, where Islam is sort of rooted in the Middle East is very strong anti-LGBT. But there's nothing, if I understand, nothing in the religion or the faith that says LGBT is bad, is it? It's not an Islamic doctrine. It's an interpretation by the people in power.
That's the problem. An Arabic word can have up to 18 meaning. So it depends on the scholar to choose and manipulate whatever he wants to deliver. That's why when the ISIS movements and so on were going on, they started targeting non-Arabic speaking Muslim because they are easier to manipulate. They don't understand Arabic. They will believe whatever you tell them. They wouldn't target someone like me because I know Arabic, I can read. And the problem again is the script was released over 1400 years ago. So we need scholars to introduce new updates like the iPhone. We keep getting updates because there's a new software. So what was understandable or accepted 1400 years ago should match the current and new situation and give a space to everyone, because in Islam we start every prayer that God is the most merciful and compassionate. I don't think God creates faulty. So you can't really dismiss a certain group when God created them. He wouldn't create something and ask us to hate them.
That's a very, very valid point. I think that's so true, where if you have a faith and a belief that you have a God that you believe in and is part of your faith, then you generally don't believe that God is imperfect. You believe that God has perfection. And why bring hate into the world? But we're talking about culture versus humanity here, and it's become a cultural thing, as you say. 1400 years of evolution of scripture and text without being upgraded to iOS or Quran version 6 to meet the context. So people are interpreting the way that people existed and gathered 1400 years ago about the way people work, computers, online, internet, relationships, clothing, different countries. The culture has changed completely underlying that text. And somehow, and you're right, we need to reinterpret it with a modern lens, maybe.
Yeah, because sometimes you get attacked from my friends and stuff that I promote and support the LGBTQ and so on. So I keep telling them, defending Black people will not make me Black. Defending disabled people will not make me disabled. So defending LGBTQ will not make me one as well. It's just a matter of respect and accepting, understanding, because I'm different at workplace. I look different. I sound different. So I know how much courage for someone from the LGBTQ or any other diversity focuses come to work, take the courage to get dressed and meet people who are mostly homogenous and don't accept you. So they should be greeted with so much respect and love for trying to show who they really are.
So you said yourself, you emigrated, or you came to this country. How many years ago was that now? So several years? Your master's degree.
I've done my master's in 2013, went back to Egypt for a year, got married and moved to Holland for 2 years, and now 4 years in the UK.
So you've been in the UK 4 years. So as a person that you would be labelled as BAME, in the broad sense of it. So you're ethnic minority. You also have a faith which is Muslim with an Islamic background. You speak Arabic. You spent most of your life in a culture in Egypt, but you've also had exposure to a more Northern European, Western type upbringing, Canada, Holland, UK. So how have you found it to adjust to the lifestyle of in the UK versus maybe the lifestyle in Egypt? What sort of big things you notice different?
The difference is there is a room for everyone to be quirky and different, but it comes with a huge responsibility to educate others. And the involvement of the law is protecting all those groups, while in Egypt or the rest of the Middle East, the law enforces harming anyone who is against the norm.
The majority, the typical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to conform to whatever. It's a preset catalog all of us should go through from baby to death.
So you must have had to learn English. Did you learn that while you were in Egypt, or was at school?
Yeah.
So you did learn at school.
Yeah.
And that's part of the education to learn Western languages. Did you learn much
German,
about Western cultures?
French.
Yeah. So the environment in Egypt is one of culturalizing you from an early age, so you understand about the world, but very restricted about the sort of things you can learn within that culture.
Exactly, and it's mainly depending on privilege. It depends on the social class you belong to. Everything can make your life easier if you belong to a certain lifestyle. And I would like to mention an example of two LGBTQ Egyptian Muslims who have totally different stories when they started to face the society. We have someone called Noor Hisham. She was born a girl. She made gender reassignment because she's a daughter of a famous actor in Egypt. She only had minor attacks in the media. She was not arrested. She was not deported. Nothing at all. And we have a different example of a girl named Sarah Higazi. She only raised the rainbow flag during a concert. She was imprisoned, molested, electrocuted, and then she was bailed out. She was asked to be deported to Canada. Last year, she lost her mom, and she was unable to attend her funeral or say goodbye or anything. Last month, she committed suicide in Canada because she was under severe depression and PTSD and so on. So privilege plays a huge part of protecting you from the law.
I visited Egypt. I visited Egypt back in 2000.
Yeah.
So I went to the pyramids at Giza, saw the Sphinx. I visited the Cairo Museum. I saw the Tutankhamun exhibition in the Cairo Museum. And I only stayed probably 14 hours. It was a stopover on a cruise. So that was my experience of Egypt. So I kind of resigned myself to the fact that it's not a place I could probably visit again and feel safe or be certain that I would be safe. And it's quite sad, really, that there are countries in the world where someone like myself, who's LGBT, who's trans, would face discrimination just being yourself. And I even have to think about how when I fly to Australia, can I stop off in Dubai? I probably can't. There's a whole lot of countries, but should I go to Russia and Moscow? So I'm now thinking about the countries where it's safe for me to go.
Yeah.
And so I guess I have a privilege of living in the UK that I can be myself.
Yes.
But there are many people in other countries who can't, and they're living in a regime where they feel they have to hide or mask or cover themselves for fear of death or punishment. And must be a terrible way to live.
It is. And unfortunately, I had a culture shock in Holland when I lived there for 2 years, because most of the people from different age group, old ones or young ones, were cracking jokes against homosexual or trans people, and they don't accept them. So I was shocked, like, this is Europe. I thought you would have the same tolerance I would see in the US or the UK. It was one of the most culturally shocking for me, because I thought that they would have that. So it's by law, they cannot do anything. But because some people know that I'm Muslim, they feel comfortable to show their homophobic or transphobic nature and think that I will not be offended because I share the same views.
Right.
So
do you yeah, I mean, you said you were shocked about hearing people in the UK free, or in the US or wherever you were, freely expressing negative views of people. Mm-hmm. So did you believe, from an Egyptian point of view, that the UK or the West was kind of free and easy and everyone was accepted, or did you get a bit of a shock when you realized? No?
My work experience showed me that it's not the reality. As I told you, I feel like people just feel tied by the law. They have to say that we accept them and so on. But realistically speaking, they are not. Some refuse to wear the rainbow lanyard when we give them away at work. We have really close family friends who are atheists, and they come home, they play with my son and so on. So I was just complimenting them and saying, okay, one day your daughter will give you one or two of them, because you will make fantastic grandparents. So the mother looked at me with so much sadness, and she said, well, that's not possible because my daughter is gay. And then there was awkward silence. I didn't know what to say. So my husband jumped in and said, well, they can adopt. So, I mean, that even here, there's still people who are against it. At workplace, we had a trans person. And when I wanted to invite her for, like, we usually go for lunch or dinner and so on, some people said that they don't want her with us. They don't feel comfortable around her. And I was really heartbroken, because those people are born and raised here. I thought they will have more acceptance than someone who was born and raised that those people are wrong.
Yeah, it's still the reality. And as a trans person myself, I'm aware that there are some people who embrace me and some people who reject me, and some people who don't understand me or don't want to understand me. And I guess you must also face that as a non-British person from birth. People, maybe you must also suffer some sort of puzzlement or discrimination because of your accent, because of your faith, and because of your gender, because you're a woman as well. So intersectional
or
woman.
Or even a mother.
A mother as well, yeah.
Because I was once stopped from a promotion until I finished my early mom years. So it happens.
So I mean, we're going back to the sort of culture versus humanity thing. So this is the culture we have in the UK as well, in the workplace. And, you know, we're both, you know, you're in HR, I'm in diversity and inclusion, promoting well-being for people. How do you see we can tackle this culture problem we've got in organizations? What you would advise people?
I would encourage doing something like speed dating, where you put people like us who are different, who are BAME, who are LGBTQ, and then invite people in the company to sit like for 10 minutes or something. Maybe you will like me. Maybe you will eliminate a wrong stereotype that you thought about people. I usually get funny comments like, "Oh, you're Muslim. I didn't know that. You don't look like them or you don't act like them." So sometimes I feel like they are aliens. They are special species. But no, some of us are funny, cool, and just like you.
So, you mentioned that. I've had people say, "Well, I'm okay I'm a good trans person. I'm an okay trans person." And maybe you almost saying to people say to you, "You're a good Muslim. You're a funny Muslim. You're okay. You're an okay Muslim," and that's kind of it's a compliment, but it's insulting, isn't it? It's
exactly backhanded.
Yeah, it's like. So because I'm well behaved and make you laugh, I'm acceptable. Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's this British privilege sort of speaking again sometimes, isn't it? It's people think they're being kind, but actually they're being really, really cruel by saying that, aren't they?
Yeah, or going out for after work drinks. I don't drink, but I don't mind sitting with people who drink. I don't mind gifting my friends with champagne or anything, whatever they like, because I can't force my belief on people. If you want real integrity, there should be a space for acceptance, tolerance, and just live and let live.
For sure. I mean, I noticed reading some of the bio you sent me in advance. You're saying you're doing a lot of public speaking now, so you've spoken at a few events. So, what got you into that? What inspired you to want to speak?
Eventually, it's Bill Borman.
Yeah.
Because while doing my studies, he believed in me. I met him at Talent Leaders Connect, where he did a fantastic speech, and I did my dissertation about recruitment. So I approached him, and then he invited me to True, London, and then other events like Enterprise Ireland, until I became one of the speakers, not just an attendee.
Fantastic. So what do you like to speak about? Is it about culture, about HR or talent, or what's your passion when you speak?
I mainly speak about diversity and inclusion. I shared some stuff about faith at workplace, about the challenges of minority group employment, how we all get rejected just because of our name before even reading our resume. You don't know anything about me, but I'm immediately rejected. I don't go through the funnel.
No, we spill over the edge, don't we, somehow? And we get swept up afterwards, and some people we never hit the radar. No, it's a shame.
Yeah.
So we're now in this world where we're living in COVID. 2020. We all had these big plans for the year. What are you learning about your own work or your own passions? Are you reevaluating your life because of COVID, because of the future?
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge momentum, like reflecting of all like previous years, my current situation, and what I want to do in the future. So it's really good.
Do you see the UK as being part of your future, or are you thinking the world and thinking, well, where else could you sit down roots and maybe try a different culture?
I'm not really sure. My husband loves traveling and living in different countries, but I want a bit of stability, especially that we have a little one. So I want him to join school, to have some friends, to have a bit of stability.
Yes, I agree. That's very important in their younger years, isn't it? So in lockdown? Are you having to home educate, or is he too young to?
No, he's just 2.
Just 2. Okay.
So I'm lucky with just cartoons and feeding.
And balancing that with working as well, so remote working and.
Yeah, well, thanks to Corona, I left my previous role, and I was supposed to start another one end of March, but it was terminated due to Corona.
Oh, okay.
So I'm now in the job application phase,
right,
interviewing and so on.
So that I suppose that's a challenge as well. I mean, in the HRTA space, there's a lot of people being laid off at the moment, or furloughed, not being brought back. So it's a tough market for HR, D&I, and L&D professionals at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It is. So,
One should be optimistic.
Yeah, I think we should.
Now it's a lot better than the few months back.
Yeah, I certainly see a lot more activity on LinkedIn, a lot more people speaking positively. I still think we've got some tough times to come when the furlough scheme ends in October. I think we'll see a lot more casualties, but I see businesses going back to business and focusing on plans and futures now, which they probably weren't doing 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah, I'm getting invites for events end of September, early October. So it's getting better.
So you're still staying in HR? I mean, you describe yourself as a kind of an HR generalist, sort of. Yeah. Is that still your passion? Is it?
Yeah, it is.
And are you looking to sort of increase your speaking? So you want a role where you can speak more and get involved with events still?
Yeah, I'm currently focusing on diversity inclusion roles.
Yeah.
Where I can advocate the underrepresented voices, like I love to give them a space, promote women in leadership roles, give diverse people, Black ethnic minorities, some space in the top senior level. Because if you start at the top, then the people at the bottom will be happy and satisfied.
Do you feel that you as yourself are represented by Black Lives Matter? As Black Lives Matter really is focusing on Black people, you would maybe class yourself maybe as brown or not Black. So do you feel that you're being represented in that movement and you're getting a spotlight shown on your own ethnicity?
Eventually, no, not direct. But if it works for one of the underrepresented groups, then all of us will be one day will have our turn. Yeah. Because like now it's the South Asian month. So there is a highlight on that. And then in October, there's Black History Month, which I'm expecting to be a very, very special month, especially this year with the George Floyd death and all the revolution and all the protests globally.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the things that the conversations I've had with people around BLM, Black Lives Matter, is that as a white person, I don't understand often what it's like to be white. I need to understand my privilege and understand what white privilege means. And also I need to understand about the history of how the UK is built on colonialism, on the money generated through the slave trade. And I need to do some more research on that. So I think we actually need a White History Month as well to say how white people have evolved and where our cultures come from, and to really unpack that, because it's not just about understanding Black culture, it's about understanding how white culture impacted Black culture as a white person. And maybe look at the statues rather than just tear the statues down. Look at each one and understand the history of that person or what the circumstances were, so that we can now put this. We talked about the 1400 years of evolution since the Quran was written, etc. We now need to look at the last 400 or 500 years since British culture was established, and the lens through how that evolved and how we were, how it was built on the blood and sweat and tears of other cultures. And I think that's the important thing. We need museums of whiteness so that we can go and look at our past through the truthful lens, rather than seeing us as the victorious conquerors who are the champions all the time.
Exactly.
And I actually reflected on this because I went to see the Egyptian pop-up, the Tutankhamun exhibition that was in the Saatchi Gallery in London. And I didn't really think much of it until the Black Lives Matter movement started and highlighted to me that I now see that through a different lens. You know, the British people were the colonists of that region. They were invading these burial grounds. They were digging stuff up, really just trying to pillage those artifacts and conquering that sort of side and stealing these things, taking them back to the UK for our pleasure, destroying the culture of the Egyptian culture, effectively. And I started seeing that maybe this Tutankhamun exhibition was actually a celebration of colonialism rather than a celebration of Egyptian history.
True.
And I started looking at things now through a different lens, thinking I actually want to understand Egyptian culture, but I don't want to understand it through a white lens. I want to understand it through the Egyptian lens. I need Egyptian people telling me this story, not a white lord with loads of money who's enslaving people effectively to dig this thing up. And so I see some of these historic things that I've grown up with in school through a different lens now. And I'm now starting to question how I've been brought up and how I've been taught about the British Empire. And when people talk about dismantling the British Empire, I'm now thinking that's a good thing. We should learn about what it did and what it did to people. But I don't feel proud of it in the same way that maybe I did when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. I get your point.
And I think hanging on to the Commonwealth, again, that's British territories, which are, we describe them as British dependencies. Why are they dependent on us? Why aren't we putting effort and time into making them less dependent on us and making them free nations and not hanging on to this colonialism of the past and propagating effectively racism or racism by permission? Yeah. So I think we all need to take a long, hard look at the way we're taught history, the way we see ourselves. And people say that history is written by the victors. You never hear the losers' perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah, and we need to blend both perspectives because we're all freedom fighters. It's just the winners are freedom fighters, the losers are terrorists, and that's the struggle we've got to face. So do you still go back to Egypt? Do you still go home as such?
Eventually, we were supposed to go in April for my sister-in-law wedding.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we couldn't go because of Corona lockdown, so we missed it.
How is it in Egypt? We don't hear much about the Corona.
It's very relaxed. My parents at the beach, and everyone is enjoying their life.
Is it? They've just not had many incidents. Is that, or they have? Have they managed it? Is it just a different culture? Is it?
Well, I don't think the media is giving so much transparency about it.
Right.
So they leave people to go with the immune, what? It's called crowd.
The herd immunity.
Yes,
right? So
the herd immunity, yes.
Yeah.
So they are adopting this style because they don't want to stop the economy from going on. So they didn't have lockdown for several months like here. No.
Okay. So you said at the beginning your superpower is being cheerful and diligent. So how does that superpower manifest itself? I mean, I can see you now on camera, although the listeners couldn't hear us. So what keeps the smile on your face? What's that passion?
It's positivity. Also making my family proud. My parents are proud of me. I always share the events or the things I participate, so it makes them very proud of me. My son, my husband, representing Egyptians abroad, just like Mo Salah. He's the Egyptian king of Liverpool. We have Rami Malek, who won the Oscars for resembling Freddie Mercury. So it's something like that keeps you going.
So being, I hate this word role model, but being a great Egyptian and showing it, being a fantastic Egyptian in the UK, being yourself and smiling about that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And just to be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
You're someone who making contributions to the society, or even educating people, because your words and the events I attend for you, they educate me something about trans people. They make me reflect when I go home about the ideas you share, the emotions, everything you say. And then I start educating other people. I attended an event with Jo. She said so and so. What do you think about that? So you start engaging with others, spreading the words, spreading your positive ideas.
Thank you. I think that's a really great outlook on life, to educate, to learn, to share that, and be really positive. I think that's a really good mantra
exactly,
to live by.
Because there's no silver bullet to make everyone accept diversity and inclusion, love everyone, and live peacefully. No.
So if you had a magic wand, or you had some vision, where do you see the world going? We've got probably another. Well, we're in the middle of July now. We've probably got another year or at least 18 months worth of COVID-related lockdowns, measures, adjustment. So where do you see the future? Do you see humanity getting better? Do you think we're going to learn something from this?
Yeah, a lot. I see more flexibility with employers, because some Stone Age one were against people working from home or flexibility. Now that they are forced to do that, they found that you can be productive, you can trust your employees to deliver whatever is required from them. If they are working from home, they don't need to be chained to the desk to give that. I see some companies are promoting the 4 days week, which can give more work-life balance to do whatever you like. Do your hobbies, stay with your family, travel, and so on. I see a better environment. There is less pollution. Nobody's traveling, no carbon print. People are more conscious and appreciating of everything we used to have and we got deprived of. So there is more appreciation to everything.
Do you think as a working mum, it will be easier for you or harder for you? Because everyone thinks it's easier, but there are other challenges of working at home or remotely and having a young family, aren't there?
Yeah, definitely. It's very hard. But again, if you have support from your partner, it can make life easier because we cover each other.
So a more even balance between the gender roles at home helps everybody win.
Yeah. Well, my husband has been living in Europe for like 15 years, so he's not very Egyptian.
Meaning traditional gender roles
exactly.
in Egyptian society.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, there are the woman's role in Egyptian society or in Muslim society is very traditional, isn't it? Very at home, cooking, cleaning, childcare. The male role is more working,
providing,
fighting.
Yeah.
The strong outbound role, whereas the female tends to see the weaker home-based role, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it isn't Muslim society often a very matriarchal, where the woman does wield some authority in the home, or is it very patriarchal still?
No, it's more equal, but it's not for the public. Like the man has to be like the final decision maker. It's the woman who decides and designs and sets everything, but just for the image.
But Egypt's not like Saudi, where as a woman you didn't need permission from a man to travel or leave the country.
No, not at all. And even driving, because my friends would always ask me, can you drive? So I said I had a car since I was 16. So
in fact, probably earlier than the UK. Yeah,
it is. And even in Egypt, because it's legally at the age of 18. But again, as I told you, speaking of privilege, sometimes you can do stuff and get away with it. I'm not so proud to say that, but that's the reality.
So we got your naughty secret out in the end. Well, that's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. You've got some great life stories and you've overcome some challenges in your life. You know, you're living in several countries, living in a country that's completely different, yet still being firmly proud of your Egyptian heritage is absolutely incredible.
It's part of my identity. Yeah. It's me.
Yeah, it is. And I think, we talked about culture versus humanity, and the humanity in you is shining through, and your hopes for the future, evolving the culture I think we can all aspire to that as well. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to book you to speak? I'm sure people will want to find out more about you. So what's the best place to get in contact?
My LinkedIn, it's Hend Halim, HEND HALIM. And I'm happy to receive any messages.
Okay, so connect with you on there, drop you a message and have a chat. And if someone's looking for a speaker on anything you've heard about today, you'd be really, really pleased to take part, wouldn't you? I can tell that.
Definitely.
So I wish you well in your job hunt. Maybe someone who listens to this may listen to this and want to offer you an opportunity to come in for an interview, which would be amazing. But I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and I'm sure once the lockdown's over, we'll bump into each other at a CIPD or another event. It'd be great to have a hug. Yeah, I miss hugging.
Yes.
Yeah, miss hugging.
Yeah, me too.
So. Thank you so much. So if anybody would like to be take part in this podcast, then please do get in contact. It's joe.lockwood@seechangehappen.co.uk. And it's a huge thank you to everyone for being a listener and to tuning in. And please do subscribe to keep updated on future episodes of the Inclusion Bites podcast, at BITES. Please tell your friends. Please tell your colleagues, because I've got a number of exciting guests lined up that I'm sure you'll be inspired by over the next few weeks and months, in addition to today's. So please get in contact. My name is Joanne Lockwood, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be your host for the podcast today. Catch you next time. Bye.